Welcome to John Martin Talks, where we battle ignorance and apathy daily. The growing ignorance of just how special this experiment we call the United States of America is, and the apathy that we can't or won't do anything and everything to save her. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we got a great show for you today, but I want to give you a quick update on a situation of gas in the South and here in Florida. I made an unscientific survey coming into the studio today. It takes me about an hour to get here, and I pass probably a dozen different places you can get gas, including going under I-75, which is one of the major thoroughfares coming into Florida. First of all, let me just say this, that Florida, a lot of people don't understand this, even though our great governor, and I did a story on this the other day, actually declared a state of emergency. We don't get much of any gas from that pipeline that is supposedly back up to speed now. Now, keep in mind that even though, if true, as they say, and the pipeline is back up to speed, it is going to take a few days, maybe even a week or so, to catch up with the demand and the fact that there are gas stations out of gas. But Florida gets the majority of its gas from our ports. We have it shipped in. So we shouldn't have been affected by the pipeline other than the panic, if you want to call it that, buying. And as I said in the show a couple days ago, I don't blame people for not relying on what the federal government under Biden is telling them. So I totally understand that. But back to my quick point, and this is very unscientific, but I know I got friends traveling to go fishing, for instance, from Atlanta this weekend and places like that. The gas station in Hawthorne, the main truck stop there on 301, has had gas all along. Now, I passed, like I say, about a dozen of them. About half of them were out of gas coming on the path that I take. And more, I think, more interesting, right at I-75 interchange, one of the main interchanges in this area, about half the stations had gas and about half did not. So I'm just saying, take that for what it's worth if you're thinking about traveling. It looks like you can find gas. I didn't see any long lines anywhere, but there are places in Florida that are out of gas, so I can only imagine the areas that are actually affected by the pipeline itself are probably in much worse shape. So, we'll just have to wait and see what happens. All right, let's get on with the stories. We got a couple of great stories for you today. My new hero, and I say new, she's been heroic to me since first coming on the scene. Marjorie Taylor Greene, the great representative from Georgia, is becoming my hero. And we're going to do a story where she is accosting, if you want to call it that, Ocasio-Cortez. So we'll talk about that. And then we're going to get into what happened yesterday, very predictably, kind of no big surprise. But the GOP, the House GOP, dumped Liz Cheney. They dumped her from her basically third position as far as power in the House. And we'll get into what that means and all. But before we go any further, we always have to bring up our sponsors. In this case, Big Daddy Unlimited, your Second Amendment headquarters, otherwise known as BDU. Now, no matter where you're or when you're watching the video, look above it and you will see links to our sponsors, Big Daddy Unlimited. Click on there. You get factory direct pricing delivered directly to your door. Please use the code from our show, which is in the link. You'll see it when you click it on there so that we get some credit for it. But you get factory direct pricing on guns and ammunition as delivered directly to your door, as well as over 100,000 other items, Second Amendment related, from tactical gear to protective wear to survival gear, even swag. And they're also, I call them your Second Amendment headquarters, because that's exactly what they are, because BDU is defending your Second Amendment rights on a daily basis. Then we have patriotthreads.org, apparel with a purpose. Remember the promo code, initials of our show, JMT, John Martin Talks, for 20% off anything they have there. They are a total fulfillment center, which means that they can produce high-quality sportswear, T-shirts. Sometimes I rock one. Maybe I'll wear one tomorrow, so you'll see. But for charity events, and they can help you define what charity, patriotic charity you want to donate to. They'll produce the shirts. They'll make sure the money goes to the right place in the proportions that you want to. PatriotThreads.org, JMT, 20% off. Recoil TV, we're partnered up with them. We're honored to be partnered up with them. They have their own YouTube channel. Spell it out, Recoil TV. Also ours, we have our own YouTube channel, John Martin Talks. Spell it all the way out. But our show is archived on Recoil TV that is all about the Second Amendment as well, because they produce high quality, high production value videos on Second Amendment issues, from the latest guns and ammunition to all of that. Our show is archived on their daily basis, Recoil TV, and we're very grateful to be on there. All right, let's get into the meat and potatoes of the show now. This is a Washington Post article. Representative Greene aggressively confronts Representative Ocasio-Cortez, causing New York congressman to raise security concern. So, like I have an old saying, if you're scared, just say you're scared. And apparently Ocasio-Cortez is afraid of Republicans, because remember, she falsely accused Ted Cruz of trying to get her killed and everything else. So she is apparently a bit chicken. And Miss Marjorie Taylor Greene is calling her out on that. Let's get into this. Republican Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene aggressively confronted Democratic Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez on Wednesday. Now, by aggressively, she shouted at her in the halls of the Capitol. She shouted out some questions. She didn't touch her, didn't even get close to her. So I guess your term aggressive depends on how you look at it. But Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez on Wednesday and falsely accused her, Miss AOC, of supporting terrorists. This is the Washington Post saying this. Terrorists leading the New York Congressman's office to call the leadership to ensure that Congress remains safe and civil place for all members and staff. So Marjorie Greene accused Ocasio-Cortez of supporting terrorists. And also, we'll get into the safe place in a minute. Let me just say something quickly about the terrorist aspect. What she's talking about is Ocasio-Cortez's defense of the Palestinians in the conflict between Israel and Palestine, and the Palestinian Authority and the Gaza Strip and Hamas, the terrorists and all that. Well, you could make a case either way that Ocasio-Cortez supports terrorists. Now, I'm not saying that she directly supports terrorists, but there are members of Congress that do, like Ilhan Omar. We've talked about it. Like I've said, if it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's a duck. Ilhan Omar is a terrorist by that definition, because she supports terrorists, raises money for terrorists and Hamas. They support her and raise money for her. So if you support each other, wouldn't that be supporting terrorists? And if you buy that, I'm not saying you have to, I'm just giving you my opinionated fact nonetheless. Well, Ocasio-Cortez fully supports everything Ilhan Omar does. And also Rashida Tlaib, right? Who literally wiped Israel off the map on her first day in office. And we'll show you a picture of that here in just a moment. But so Ocasio-Cortez supports the squad, as they say. She's a member of the squad, which I affectionately call the Twitter twats, because I think that actually is more descriptive than the squads, a truer descriptive of them. But Ocasio-Cortez absolutely supports Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar. So I think it's fair to question whether or not she actually supports terrorists, because we know those other groups do. And as far as this idea, a safe and civil place for all members of staff. Well, you know, Ocasio-Cortez literally, I'm about to show you a video. This is before, I believe, she actually took office. She had actually won the election, and I don't think her session of Congress had actually started when she supported people taking over Nancy Pelosi's office and was given a hero's welcome by them. Check it out.
Single one of you for putting yourselves and your bodies and and everything on the line to make sure that we save our planet, our generation, and our future. It's so incredibly important. I've shared with you all, and I've shared my story that that my journey here started at Standing Rock, and it started with everyday people doing exactly what you all were doing too. It was just standing with the Lakota Sioux, standing with allies, standing with indigenous tribes, because we don't have a choice. We do not have a choice. We have to get to 100% renewable energy in 10 years. There is no other option. The IPCC let us know that. And what I hope we all show is that this moment, and this is the rallying point, it's not just about confrontation, but in a way it's about real, meaningful unity behind our goals. That's what this is about.
That's right.
Yes. Woo-hoo, yeah. Did you hear where she said this is not just about confrontation? So it is about confrontation. And that's a key point, because we're going to play some other videos highlighting this as well. But keep in mind, now I understand these people are mostly peaceful, but they're occupying Nancy Pelosi's office. There are people sitting in jail right now because they were supporters, I suppose, of Donald Trump that occupied Nancy Pelosi's office, and they're actually facing federal prison time. I don't think any of those people in there not only are facing time, but I doubt any of them were actually arrested. And they took over Nancy's office. And let me just ask you this while we're speculating here. This is speculation. What do you think would have happened in that crowd right there if I had been in the Capitol, or somebody who looks like me, and I happened to be wearing my Make Fishing Great Again, or my MAGA hat, for God's sakes, because I'm a fish whisperer, by the way, if you're new to the show. Some of us are sicker than others, and yes, I whisper to the fishes. Billy Bob here is my psychic sidekick. He has a Twitter handle, by the way. It's at Billy Bob Bass 1, and mine is at John Martin Talks. But what if I had stumbled my way into the speaker's office there wearing a MAGA hat? Well, how do you think I would have been received by that crowd? Yeah, they would have probably, slapped me with their Gucci purses or something like that. I don't know. But this idea that that you can create a safe environment, it's not so much as if they're attacking Republicans or conservatives, then it doesn't matter. And so Ocasio-Cortez is up there glad-handing, telling these people that they need to go beyond confrontation. Remember that, because it's very important. We're going to talk about that more later in the story. But she didn't condemn them at all. And I don't remember her condemning when this happened to a Republican, even though it's Jeff Flake, who I don't particularly like, but no one deserves what he did during the Kavanaugh hearings. And this is the milder side of it. There were actually people accosted quite a bit more than this. But remember this video and this is in the elevator inside the Senate office buildings, which are a part of the Capitol complex, right after Jeff Flake said that he was going to vote to support the nomination of Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court. Check it out.
Is allowing someone who actually violated a woman to sit in the Supreme Court. This is not tolerable. You have children in your family. Think about them. I have 2 children. I cannot imagine that for the next 50 years, they will have to have someone in the Supreme Court who has been accused of violating a young girl. What are you doing, sir?
I was sexually assaulted and nobody believed me. I didn't tell anyone, and you're telling all women that they don't matter, that they should just stay quiet, because if they tell you what happened to them, you're going to ignore them.
I think we get the point. That is Senator Flake trying to get in the elevator. What you can't really see too clearly on that video, but the elevator's actually being held open by reporters with microphones sticking it through, not letting the elevator close. And he's accosted verbally by 2 women, and they get even more emotional. That whole video lasts about 10 minutes. I don't remember Ocasio-Cortez coming to the defense of Senator Jeff Flake during that time. In fact, and I couldn't seem to find it. It's harder to find certain types of videos these days, and we'll talk about that more in just a minute. But I don't remember Ocasio-Cortez, defending Jeff Flake there. In fact, if memory serves me correct, she actually applauded those two women for accosting Flake in that elevator. So I guess it just depends on who's being accosted and who's doing the accosted. But and as I hadn't said this in a while, but if I say it, it bears repeating. Keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, there is no double standard. You hear that all the time. Oh, there's a double standard. No, there's not. There's not a double standard. There is one standard, and that is for conservatives and people who support people like Donald Trump. Shows like ours that get crunched on, our numbers get whittled down on Facebook and everything else. By the way, we're building, thank courtesy of Big Daddy Unlimited, a whole new platform. It's under construction. We're going to have a new studio. A lot of things are going to be popping here. So hang in there with us. I know we're being crunched down. I appreciate you fighting with us by sharing our stuff as far and wide as you possibly can. So I appreciate that. But I hadn't said this much lately, but there is no double standard. There's a standard for conservatives, period. What standard is there for the left? What standard are they held to? They can say and do anything. There's not even a story about it when they shout at people in the elevator, when members of Congress on the Republican side are accosted everywhere. In fact, the people that accost them are celebrated by it. When Chuck Schumer can go to the steps of the Supreme Court and say, Gorsuch and Kavanaugh, we're going to reap the whirlwind. We're coming for you. He gets to hold his position, and now he is the majority leader. There is no double standard, and I'll ask, maybe I'm wrong, but tell me what standard the left is actually held to. So in order there to be a double standard, there has to be some standard they're held to. I haven't seen one. Let's move along. Two Washington Post reporters witnessed Ocasio-Cortez exit the House chamber late Wednesday afternoon ahead of Greene, who shouted, "Hey, Alexandria," twice in an effort to get her attention. Well, maybe she should have yelled, "Hee-haw, hee-haw." Maybe. Is that fair? That's probably not fair. That's a little ugly of me, but I'm feeling a kind of playful mood. But maybe she'd have yelled, "Hee-haw," to her, and she'd have turned around. Because I tell you, that picture looks pretty similar to me, man. I'm just saying. When Ocasio-Cortez, oh, by the way, if they decide, and I know this is probably sexist to say, but if they decide to have an actual cat fight, I'll referee it, man. We'll put it on national TV, and I'll referee that fight between Ocasio-Cortez and Marjorie Greene. You know, a steel cage match, man. That's what we need. When Ocasio-Cortez did not stop walking, Greene picked up her pace and began shouting at her, asking why she supports Antifa, a loosely knit group. This is the Washington Post interpretation of that. A far-left activist and Black Lives Matter, falsely, according to the Washington Post, labeling them terrorist groups. Greene also shouted that Ocasio-Cortez was failing to defend her radical socialist beliefs by declining to publicly debate the freshman from Georgia. So Marjorie Taylor Greene has issued a challenge to Ocasio-Cortez to debate her about principally the Green New Deal. And I think we've already been living the Green New Deal here in the South, and we don't want any part of it. But I like how they say falsely labeling them, talking about Black Lives Matter and Antifa as a terrorist group. Now, I was going to play a video for you now that just shows literally how Black Lives Matter is a terrorist group. You may remember earlier this week, I played a video of what happened in broad daylight in a neighborhood in Portland where a disabled Marine who was still doing handyman work literally was stopped on a street. He ended up getting out of his vehicle. I wish I could show you this, and I'll tell you why I can't in just a moment. And was beaten to an inch of his life, and he was dragged out on the street by armed people wearing all black and shouting, you know, "Get the F out of here," and all that. And he told them, "I'm a disabled Marine, a vet, and we don't give a F who you are." If you haven't seen it, I wish I could play it for you, but guess what? It's no longer available. Isn't it interesting how these types of videos that actually show the left in their true light, which is negative, seem to disappear? Now, if I do a search for something about Donald Trump, there'll be 100 videos pop up immediately that are negative about Donald Trump. Now, if I try to find one positive, that's pretty hard. But negative, oh, there's thousands of them. But you try to find something And this video is not even a week old, and Twitter has taken it down. And the video is just speaking the truth. It's just showing what really happened. But I'll have to say again, man, when you can take out an American citizen on a public street in broad daylight, and you're out there with black mask on and everything else, with armed with AK-47s and AR-15s, what would you call that? To me, I don't care if they're labeled a terrorist group or not. They are a terrorist group, and Antifa as well. And as far as radical socialists, well, all you got to do is look at this picture. If you haven't seen this, that is Maduro, the president, the dictator of Venezuela. And I don't know if, on a side note, and keep the picture up there because I want to talk a little bit about it. On a side note, you may or may not have seen this, but a good chunk of the people now coming across the border are from Venezuela. People are fleeing there. I don't blame them. I don't want them to come here illegally, but I don't blame them in a bit. Socialism is causing them to flee all the way from Venezuela. Think about that. But that is Maduro. The two women there, I think the one in the black dress, she is one of the chief co-founders of Black Lives Matter. And she is huggy-duggy, lovey-dovey with Maduro. Black Lives Matter. I'm not talking about everybody who wears a t-shirt, but the organization Black Lives Matter is a communist, socialist, Marxist organization, pure and simple, end of story. And you can fact check that photo all you want. It's absolutely real. So when Marjorie Taylor Greene accuses Ocasio-Cortez of being a terrorist and a socialist, to me, she's supporting these groups. I never heard her say a critical word of Antifa or Black Lives Matter. Have you? Did she even comment on the Marine that was beaten up on the streets a couple of days ago? I doubt it. But Greene asked to Ocasio-Cortez in the halls of Congress, "You don't care about the American people. Why do you support terrorists and Antifa?" Good question. Ocasio-Cortez did not stop to answer Greene, only turning around once and throwing her hands in the air in an exasperated motion. Now, her spokesperson said this, Lauren Hitton, Ocasio-Cortez spokeswoman Laura Hitt, H-I-T-T, I don't know anything about her, said in a statement, Representative Greene tried to begin an argument with Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez, and when Representative Cortez tried to walk away, Congressman Greene began screaming and calling Representative Ocasio-Cortez a terrorist sympathizer. Now, this is what the spokesperson went on to say. She said, "We hope leadership and the sergeant at arms will take real steps to make Congress a safe civil place for all members and staff." Didn't seem to matter when they were accosting Jeff Flake, right? Especially as many offices are discussing reopening. Think about that. Congress is not even open yet. I mean, they've all had their shots and they're not open. I guess they're fencing it. One member has already been forced to relocate her office due to Congressman Greene's attacks. So they talk about this. Let me ask you this. Who do you think inspired Congresswoman Greene to do these kind of things? You know, who knows exactly? But she could have gotten inspiration potentially from another fellow Congresswoman. Check this out.
We want it done now. We're going to insist on it. If you think we're rallying now, you ain't seen nothing yet. Already, you have members of your cabinet that are being booed out of restaurants, who have protesters taking up at their house, who's saying no peace, no sleep. No peace, no sleep. And guess what? We're going to win this battle because while you try and quote the Bible, Jeff Sessions and others, you really don't know the Bible. God is on our side. On the side of the children. On the side of what's right. On the side of what's honorable. On the side of understanding that if we can't protect the children, we can't protect anybody. And so, let's stay the course. Let's make sure we show up wherever we have to show up. And if you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant in a department store, at a gasoline station. You get out and you create a crowd. And you push back on them. And you tell them they're not welcome anymore,
anywhere, anytime. I love how Democrats are always for the children, taking up for the children. It's like unbelievable. They're killing children as fast as they possibly can. But I guess that's another story. But there's always for the children. Unless, like I said, it's interesting to me how Mars has life on it because there's bacteria up there. But a heartbeat in the United States of America, maybe not so much. You kind of think about that yourself. But Maxine Waters, who is a chair of the Finance Committee, for God's sakes, is literally telling you if you see members of Trump's cabinet, you confront them. You get up in their face. You challenge them. But Ocasio-Cortez can't be challenged by Marjorie Taylor Greene. No, you tell me about the standards, man. They want to get rid of Marjorie Taylor Greene. They took her off of all committees, but they put Maxine Waters at the head of one of the most powerful committees at Capitol Hill, the Finance Committee, man. It's unbelievable. And it's all about getting in people's faces. Let me just give you a little piece of advice here, because she talks about confronting basically Trump people at gas stations. This is one of these points in the show. If you don't get anything outside the show, get this, especially some of you snowflakes out there. If you see somebody like me at a gas station in my old beat up pickup truck waiting in line so I can go fishing or something like that to get gas, don't confront me. Don't confront somebody like me. And especially if they got like a Trump sticker on the back and all that kind of stuff, which everything I drive, including my little trailer that I pull, my little hand cart I pull all my fishing gear down on the dock with, got a Trump sticker on it because I'm driving. Everything I drive got a Trump sticker on it. I'm just telling you, don't confront people like me because it might not end well for you. I'm just saying, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't listen to Maxine, man, because she ain't going to be there when you need her, that's for sure. Before walking away, Greene said that the encounter was intended to hold Democrats accountable for their policy proposals. Amen. Somebody needs to hold them accountable. But Greene went on to say, talking about Ocasio-Cortez, she's a chicken. She doesn't want to debate the Green New Deal. These members are cowards. They need to defend their legislation to the people. That's pathetic. Well, the thing is, I applaud her for doing this, but apparently, have you thought about this media that want to criticize or Washington Post that's writing this article? If you guys in the mainstream media would actually do your dadgum jobs and ask serious questions about this kind of stuff and confront some of these people on their nonsense, then maybe we wouldn't have to have people like Marjorie Taylor Greene actually, be impolite maybe. I mean, and shout these questions. When is the last time Ocasio-Cortez actually got called out for anything by the mainstream media? Do you remember? And I should have put these pictures up there, but you remember when there was this Ocasio-Cortez was down at the border facilities and she's crying for the children that Trump's putting Obama cages and everything. She's crying and she's saying women are drinking out of the toilet and all that nonsense. And have you seen her one time at the border right now? We've got 3 or 4 times as many children incarcerated in Obama cages now than we ever had under Trump, if you want to call it that. The border, I just heard this coming in. It's frightening. There are some reports coming out now that just in the last month, now keep in mind, we did reporting that basically 179,000 people have been detained, record numbers, detained coming across the border. But there are reports now that as many as 185,000, and this is coming from some people in the Border Patrol, 185,000 people have escaped capture just this month alone. Think about that. We are being invaded. I don't care how you want to slice it. You can call me anything but a child of God. We're being invaded. It is, and I'm not knocking the people. I don't blame them for trying to come here. And there was a statistic, I've reported about this a couple of years ago, actually, that the UN had a thing, basically they'd done some research, and as many, for Mexico, Central and South America, and this was 5 or 6 years ago, that as many as 81,000 people, I think it was, down in that area. No, I'm sorry, 800,000 people. I'm sorry. let me back up. 81,000 people, I think it was, said they wanted to come here permanently if they could. And there's a new report that just came out. I heard it this morning. They did a new polling of people in Central and South America and the Caribbean down there, and said that 42 million people, 42 million. And I think the other figure I meant to say was 81 million. I'm sorry about the confusion. But 42 million people in a recent polling said that they wanted to relocate the United States of America permanently. I don't blame any of them. But ladies and gentlemen, can we withstand that? But my point, I digress. I do that from time to time. Let me regroup here. Do you see Ocasio-Cortez? There's that picture of her crying. Thank you, my producer, for pulling that up. That was a few years ago under the Trump administration. What do we hear now? Crickets, man. Crickets. You remember Biden literally looked in the cameras and said, we'll let you see these facilities when we bring them up to speed. I mean, oh my God, you imagine Donald Trump getting before the cameras and saying, I'll let you see what's happening down there when I get it the way I want it. Oh my God, they'd impeach him. They would have been saying impeach him, man. But if the media actually covered some of this stuff, actually asked some tough questions, because the Biden administration just said this past week that the border was closed. The border was closed. And no one pushes back on that. It's unbelievable. So Marjorie Taylor Greene has the cojones to actually step up and challenge these people. I salute her, man. I really do. And I know it's not the most polite tactics, but my God, somebody's got to stand up. Greene has been, according to this is the Washington Post, Greene has been a controversial figure since her 2020 campaign, and Democrats voted to strip her of her committee assignments earlier this year because of extremist statements. She's made extremist statements. Now, I told you about Maxine Waters, right? We played that from a few years ago. Keep in mind, she was and still is the chair of the Finance Committee, one of the most powerful chairs in Congress because they control the money, right? And Financial Services Committee is what it's officially called. But you remember this from just a couple of weeks ago when Maxine Waters said this on the streets in Minnesota? Check it out.
Reform. And so, yes, I would like to see the bill in Congress pass on police reform, but I know that the right wing, the racists, are opposed to it, and I don't know what's going to happen to it, but I know this: we've got to stay in the street, and we've got to demand justice.
As a black man, despite all of the efforts, I feel like nothing changes, and George Floyd is waking so many people up. Yet nothing has happened, despite the rhetoric. Like, what needs to happen that's different this year than all the years before?
We're looking for a guilty verdict. We're looking for a guilty verdict, and we're looking to see if all of the talk that took place and has been taking place after they saw what happened to George Floyd, if nothing does not happen, then we know that we've got to not only stay in the street, but we've got to fight for justice. But I am very hopeful, and I hope that we're going to get a verdict that will say guilty, guilty, guilty. And if we don't, we cannot go away.
And not just manslaughter, right? I mean...
Oh, no, not manslaughter. No. This is guilty for murder. I don't know whether it's in the first degree, but as far as I'm concerned, it's first degree murder.
Congresswoman, what happens if we do not get what you just told? What should the people do? What should protesters on the street do?
I didn't hear you.
What happens?
What should protesters do?
Well, we got to stay on the street, and we've got to get more active. We've got to get more confrontational. We've got to make sure.
That's good enough right there. I want you to hear that last point right there. More confrontational. This is a person who's been in Congress forever and a day, is chair of the Financial Services Committee, and is on the streets telling people that they need to get more confrontational with police and others. That's what she's talking about. More confrontation. Keep in mind that people had literally at that point been killed in the streets. Police officers have been murdered. Citizens have been killed in the streets. Yet she is saying we need to get more confrontational, and that's not a problem. She doesn't need to be removed from her chair of her committee, let alone all of her committees. But Marjorie Taylor Greene shouts out questions to Ocasio-Cortez that the media should be shouting out, by the way, and nothing. Crickets. It's not, they want to destroy Marjorie Taylor Greene, but when Maxine Waters, it's crickets, man. It's unbelievable. There is no double standard. I keep saying that. Tell me what standard Maxine Waters is held to. I haven't seen one, and she probably get reelected again. Greene has made a number of incendiary and false statements, according to the Washington Post, in recent years, among them that black people are held slaves to the Democratic Party. Well, you know, Joe Biden, who said in the debates, remember this, Joe Biden said that he is the Democratic Party. Remember when he said this in an interview leading up to the November 3rd election about black people? Check it out.
Listen, you got to come see us when you come to New York, VP Biden.
I will.
It's a long way until November. We got more questions.
You got more questions, but I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black.
It don't have nothing to do with Trump. It has to do with the fact
you ain't black. If you don't vote for the Democrats, you ain't black. You know, tell that to the highest percentage of black Americans that voted for a Republican ever for Donald Trump. I guess they're not black. So doesn't that sound like the Democratic Party feels like that the black community owes them something? I mean, that's what they think. And remember, I should have played this video too, but Biden said when it came to black people, they had no diversity of thought. Do you remember that? Maybe I'll put it up on my Facebook site. Biden actually said that Latinos have diversity of thought, but black people, no, they didn't. That's what Joe Biden said about black people. And you're going to tell me that Marjorie Taylor Greene is making a false statement when she says that the Democratic Party wants to hold black Americans as slaves to that party? I mean, give me a break, man. And she went on, and this article goes on to accuse Representative Greene that Representative Ilhan Omar and Rashid Tlaib, the first two Muslim women elected to Congress, represent an Islamic invasion into our government offices. Now that's a pretty strong statement, but the reality is, look at Rashida Tlaib. Rashida Tlaib, this was back when she first got elected. On her very first day at her office, literally took the map and put a sticker of Palestine over Israel, and they're all laughing about it. And that's no laughing matter when you look at what's happening there now, let alone what's happened before. Literally, when Iran talks about wiping Israel and obliterating them to the sea, for Rashida Tlaib, a congresswoman, to take Israel, our best ally and friend, certainly probably in the world, but certainly in the Middle East, off the map, I would call that support of Islamic invasion, would you not? And then don't even get me started on Ilhan Omar when she said somebody did something somewhere when they brought down the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center. I mean, these people, so what Marjorie Taylor Greene is saying, and it may be impolite to say it, but she's saying the truth. It's the truth, whether the Washington Post wants to acknowledge it or not. And now, ladies and gentlemen, listen to this next paragraph. This is Marjorie Taylor Greene's real crime. Attacking Rashida Tlaib and Ocasio-Cortez, those are minor. Here is the crime for which Marjorie Taylor Greene is probably 100% guilty of, and for that, she needs to be wiped out. Listen to this. Greene has been an outspoken defender of former President Donald Trump and his false claims that the 2020 presidential election was stolen. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're not going to get too deep into that now, but there's really been no investigations into the 2020 election. Contrary to what the mainstream media puts out, there haven't been a lot of proof, but there hasn't been much investigating either. And it's happening right now in places like Michigan and Arizona, and the Democrats seem to be terrified of it. This is not the first confrontation, according to the article, Greene has with Democratic member of Congress that has caused them to raise concerns. Listen to this one. In February, Greene also got into a confrontation with the office of a neighboring congresswoman over transgender rights after Marie Newman, she did this first, hung a transgender pride flag outside her office in honor of her transgender daughter to push back against Greene's opposition to the legislature that would extend civil rights protections to LGBT community. So Greene didn't vote the way this lady wanted her to do. And so she put the rainbow flag outside facing Greene's office. Greene is a lot like Donald Trump, man. She don't apologize. You hit her once, she's going to slap you twice. She hung up a poster across the hall that read, "There are two genders, male and female. Trust the science." So she didn't start it, but she's going to finish it. As they say in my neighborhood, don't start no, and there won't be no. You know, that's the way we work down here. And she's a Southern gal, so maybe same way up in Georgia. Representative Sean Casten, I don't know who he is, from Illinois, called Greene's poster sickening, pathetic, unimaginably cruel. Well, you know why? She spoke the truth, right? But we know what the Democratic Party, because remember, Biden said he is the Democratic Party. Remember when he said this on the campaign trail?
We choose unity over division. We choose science over fiction. We choose truth over facts. And so,
Truth over facts.
if you're interested
So,
in
you know,
hearing me,
it's hard to determine whether the flag is truthful or factual. So, I don't know, man. It's crazy. But Greene criticized Ocasio-Cortez for not debating her. This is what Greene said. If she, talking about Ocasio-Cortez, chickens out, then she shows who she really is, a scared little girl that is pretty stupid and doesn't know anything about the economy or economics. Well, perhaps I've speculated on who Marjorie Taylor Greene got, as her inspiration. It's probably Donald Trump. Could be Maxine Waters, or it could be Ocasio-Cortez herself. Remember when Ocasio-Cortez said this?
Let this moment radicalize you. Let this moment really put everything into stark focus. Because this election has always been about the fight of and for our lives. And if anything, tonight is making that more clear to more people than ever before. And I'm going to tell you, it's going to get more and more and more clear up until Election Day. Things are going to happen.
Things are going to happen. More and more clear. She says, we're in the battle for our lives. Okay? That's pretty incendiary. Well, could Marjorie Taylor Greene, I'm not trying to speak for the Congresswoman, but could she actually feel that maybe she is in the battle for her life, both politically and in reality, if you love America? I certainly feel like our country is in the battle of its life. So maybe Marjorie Taylor Greene is being inspired by Ocasio-Cortez and letting this moment radicalize her. I'm just saying. Maybe Greene should take Cheney's spot. Liz Cheney got dumped. We're going to talk about that right now. All right, we got a few minutes left. We want to get into this AP story. GOP dumps defiant Trump critic Cheney from the top House spot, or from a top House spot. Republicans dumped GOP Representative Liz Cheney from her House leadership post Wednesday, was not unexpected, for her persistent repudiation of Trump's election falsehoods. Always falsehoods, right? Underscoring the hold that defeated and twice impeached former president retains on his party. Donald Trump's election falsehoods. Well, as I said, they really haven't been investigated that much. Liz Cheney, by the way, don't feel sorry for her, because even if she gets ousted in a primary, she's going to cash in. Oh, yeah, man. She's going to be the go-to person now for the leftists. They're going to, CNN, MSNBC, they're not going to get enough of her. They're going to be putting a microphone in her face and having her spout out something every single deal. There's got to be a book deal already in the works. I would no doubt about that. She definitely insisted she'll keep trying, talking about Liz Cheney, to wrench the party away from him, Donald Trump, and his destructive lies. There's a story, I started to do a little bit of something on it. Like 100 Republicans, former governors, stuff like that, have signed a letter basically saying that if the party doesn't dump Trump, they're going to form a third party. But if you look at that list, it's people that need to go anyway. There's not a single person of any political relevance that I saw on that list. And that one includes Liz Cheney. Somebody needs to beat her. Meeting behind closed doors, GOP lawmakers needed less than 20 minutes and a voice vote to oust a Wyoming congressman from her job as number 3 House leader. The banishment urged by Trump and other top Republicans showed Trump's ability, they're talking about, to upend the careers of antagonists, even those from GOP royalty. Well, everybody has free speech, right, including Liz Cheney. I applaud her for speaking out if that's the way she truly believes. In fact, I'm grateful for the 10 Congress Republicans that voted to impeach Trump. She was at the top of that list. Why am I grateful for them? Because we need to know who they are. I'd rather have someone I can identify and say, I'm going to work against you than someone behind me stabbing me in the back. So if you're a Republican out there, Democrats, we already know where you stand. But if you're a Republican out there, whether you're that 100 Liz Cheney, the 10, it doesn't matter. Stand up and speak your mind. I would encourage you to, because first of all, you have free speech. Please identify yourself to make our job a little bit easier, because we need to get rid of you. She told her colleagues before the vote, according to a person who provided remarks anonymously, all this anonymous, she said this: if you want leaders who will enable and spread talking about Trump's destructive lies, I'm not your person. You have plenty of others to choose from. That will be their legacy. What is the title of her book going to be? Because it's already in the works. You can see it. Check my time. Got a couple minutes left. Cheney's ouster effectively means the GOP is setting a remarkable requirement. Listen, this is rich. Requirement for admission to its highest ranks. Adherence to, or at least silence about Trump's fallacious claims about widespread voting. And I'm not even going to say the F word, mod. We don't say the F word here. I'm not going to fall into that trap, mod. In states around the country, officials and judges of both parties found no evidence to support his assertions. Remarkable requirement for admission to the highest ranks. Please, man, please. You're trying to tell me that the GOP has been holding its members to a high standard or whatever compared to or a low standard, no matter how you look at it, compared to the Democrats? If you don't drink the Kool-Aid of a Democratic Party, man, you're done. Just look at the people who ran for president in 2020 on the Democratic side who tried to say something different than what the mainstream media was saying and the progressive left. Man, they got chewed apart. She told Republicans she's not quitting. She's going to keep running. And she said this about a potential challenge. She said, bring it on of a potential challenge. I would just say this out in Wyoming. Y'all could get together if you're opposed to Cheney and pick one solid candidate to go against her so that we can actually defeat her. I think that Cheney is going to be on CNN on a regular basis, MSNBC. And who would have thought this, ladies and gentlemen? Who would have thought that the daughter of Darth Vader, that's what they used to call Dick Cheney, by the way, Darth Vader, right, would now be the poster child for the left. Enjoy it while you can. Enjoy your 15 minutes, Liz. And I hope you guys in Wyoming do the right thing and oust her. Well, I hope you enjoyed the show as much as I've enjoyed bringing it to you. Please go directly to our Facebook pages, our other social media, like them, share them with others, support our sponsors. I'll pray for your family. You pray for mine. Let's all pray for this great nation, because she absolutely needs it. And I think she deserves it and needs it now more than ever. But above all else, like I say each and every day, from my heart, from my family to yours, have a blessed day.